Ande lame shabla solvade. Omo a guru vajradara sumati munishas. Uta vardanya shri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum hum. Oma guru vajradara sumati munishas. Uta vardanya shri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum hum. Omo a guru vajradara sumati munishas. Uta vardanya shri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum hum. Oma guru vajradara sumati munish. Uta vardanya shri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum. Hakyuke kudan dagelu. Hakyuke sundan dagi. Tugdan dagi. Tenyerme çıktı çingelo. Makyuke kudan dagelu. Makyuke sundan dagi. Dagi. Tenyerme çıktı çingelo. Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakya Munye Svoha. Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakya Munye Svoha. Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Munye Svoha.
Good morning. Before we begin with the teachings, the actual teachings, we will do the preliminary prayers that are done before these Lam Rim teachings. These are the same prayers that have been recited for a couple of centuries. So these teachings are called the graduated stages of the path towards enlightenment, as a kind of manual, a practical manual to show us how to put this transformation into practice. And this was structured during the 11th century in Tibet from a master named Atisha, and then known in Tibetan as Lam Rim, which can be translated as the graduated stages of the path towards enlightenment. And in this transmission of this method, of these teachings that started in Tibet in the 11th century, where Tibet structured these teachings of Buddha in such a way that they became more accessible and more practical. And then this has been handed down since then. So first we will recite the Heart Sutra, the Sutra of the essence of the perfection of wisdom. And during the Heart Sutra, at a certain point, we clap our hands 3 times, and at that moment, we imagine that any interference that there may be they are completely eliminated. So an interference could be anything that blocks what we want to do, something positive that we want to do that doesn't allow for that to happen. So in that moment, what should we try to eliminate? We should eliminate doubt and uncertainty, anger, jealousy, any kind of emotional state that we can have at this moment that takes away our concentration, etc. So these are called inner interferences. So those that we're aware of and those that we're not aware of, we imagine any kind of interference that there might be. So any interference that could block this correct transmission, or so we hope that all interferences are gone and that that these teachings can have a real effect on this transformation of our mind. So imagine that all interferences are eliminated, and then we recite the verses that come after, which are the names of the various masters from whom these masters handed down these teachings, starting from Buddha Shakyamuni all the way to Lama Michel Rinpoche, and then to me. And then to all of us. These teachings that arrived to us today through this lineage prayer. And then the mandala offering. Tomorrow we'll do a more abbreviated version. So we do this together. There's a small mistake at the beginning. Just to tell you. So here where it says. So actually, it should just be one time. So, digi dagi tupa dutichena, that, and then you see that it's again says dike dagi tupa. So no, it's just one time. Dike dagi digi dagi tupa tupa. Do this. So that's just one time, and that means once I heard.
Kuncho somla cha tse lo ya dike dagi tupa tuchina chumden de gyabo kab chago pumbo rila gelongi gendun chenpo dan chanchu sembe gendun chenpo dan taba chikdu shuote Te tse chumden de samu nangwa she jawe chegi namdrangi tinge zila nyombra shu so yang te tse chanchu semba semba chem papa cherezi wangchu sheragi parutu jimba samu cheba nila nambra tash Pumbo ngabo deda kya ran shinge tomba nambra tao Tene sangye gi tu tsedan denpa sharipu Chanchu semba semba chenpo pakpa chenrezi wancho la dike che me som Rigi pu kanla la sheragi parutu chimba samo chepa chepa deba te jidra labra cha Tike che me padang Chanchu semba semba chenpo papa chenrezi wanju gi tsedan denpa sharatati pul dike che me so sharipu rigi pu mo kan la la sheragi parutu jim samo chepa chepra deba te ditra nambra taura chate Pumbo ngabo teta kyan ran shinge tomba nambra yandakbra jesu tao Su tomba wo tomba ni suk so Sule tomba ni shema Tomba ni le kyan su shema yeno Tishin tu tsurwa dan, du she dan, du che dan, nambra sheba nama tongba wo sharipu, tedra che tamche tongba nite tsini meba ma keba ma gagba tima meba tima dan, trawa triwa kanwa meba wo sharipu, teta we na Tomba nila so me, tsorwa me, dushe me, duche na me, nambra sheba me, mig me, nawa me, na me, che me, lu me, yi me, su me, dra me, tri me, ro me, rikcha me, che me, me ba ne, yigi ka me, yigi nambra shebe, kamge pardo ya me to, Marikpa me, marikpa seba me ba ne, gashi me, gashi sebe pardo yame to teshin me wadang, kunchung wadang, gokpa dam, lam me, yeshe me, topa me, matopa yame to sharipu, teta we na, chanchu semba nam, topa me be chir, sheragi paru tu chimbala tenching ne te, Semla dripa me chin trakpa me te chinchi lole shintu dene nyange le debe tarchin to tu sundu nambra shubhe sangye tamche kya shiragi paru tu chimbala tene lana me pa yandabra zope chanchu tu ngombra zopara sangye so te tawe na shiragi paru tu chimbe nga rikpa chimbe nga lana me be nga Minyam padanyam be nga, dunge tamche rabdu shivra chebe nga, mizum be na dembra shebra chate sheragi parudu jimbe nga, me pa tayata gate gate par. Sam gate bodhi swaha sharipu chanchu semba semba chem, teda sheragi parudu jimba samula labra chao. Tene chumdende tinge zin tele shende chanchu semba semba chenpo paba chenrezi wancho la lekso she jawa chingne lekso lekso rigi pu tete shino rigi pu tete shinte jitra kyoge temba chinto sheragi paru tu jimba samola chebra chate deshin sheba nam Jesu yirango chumden degi dike cheka tsene tsedan denba shari budan janju semba semba chem papa chenre zi wancho dan tam chedan denbe korre teda dan lada midan lama chisara chebe jikden yirante chumden degi sumba la ngombara tu Kala chebe ne che tamba na ngwe she zudru ngawe tutoba chem Drube pula mayi pushin si Nesong kandro tsola cha tse lo Aka samaranza shatara samaraya pe aka samaranza shatara samaraya pe aka samaranza shatara samaraya pe aka samaranza Maranza shatara samaraya pe aka samaranza 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 shatara samaraya Aka samaranza shatara samaraya pe aka samaranza shatara samaraya pe Taya ta gate gate para samgate bodhi soha pakpa kuncho sumgi kai dembe topchir dog par gyurchi me par gyurchi shivar gyurchi rabdu shivar gyurchi drage parche mitumbe chore ngemba tamche shanti kuru ye soha geri tongra gechu shivadam mitun be kendan trawa Tumba drumchen punson tsogyurupe trashi dekyan tendir dele shon.
We ask for the blessings of from all the masters of lineage.
Lama Rinpoche dagi chivura pede tenshula kadrin chimbu gwene jesonte kuson tugi ngodru tseduso kuson tugi ngodru tseduso Jimba nyangme tenpa chumdende gyasa damba chitsun mi bangong Gyawe lungten pakpa tome sha sangye chansen sumla solwa de sangye chansen sumla solwa de zamlin kebe tsugen yigi nye ume lamnye pakpa namdre te tebe sarne tsumba namdre de jikde miche sumla sowa de jikde mikche sumla sowa de mechu ngotsara ne gyuru chogi de samo lamge gyuchan duwe de Lapchen chebe tergyo namnanze drove tsala sumla solwa de drove tsala sumla solwa de lamche shirchin geze sensan sha gyawe menga kunzen kusali kundro tsewe jenzin gewa chen drove tepun sumla solwa de drove tepun sumla Jancho tola nganye serlimpa shinda chembo sozi marmeze lamsa sezen temba rinpoche tembe sokshin sumla solwade tembe sokshin sumla sowade mawa dame drencho shaketo gyawe kenra kundu jambe yang samu tunse pakcho ludru sha mawe tsugen sumla sowade mawe tsugen sumla sowade Pakpe gomba setse lawa dra tese tuwo rikpe kuchu gyase rikpe kuchu nipe sha rikpe wangcho sumla sowa de rikpe wang Tendre samo chishin sikpa ye shinda chimbo setsin marmeze lamsa setsin temba rinpoche Tsamlin gingyur nila solwa de tsamlin gingyur nila sowa de Nel joro wando pande gombo la samu tinzen tembe neusurpa dube deno kundu tabgo drome sumla sowa de tabgo drome sumla sowa de tsumbe drubar lulen namse sha tambe jila namka gyabo dang jikden chuge pangbe senge sang gyase sambe shabla sowa de gyase sambe shabla sowa de chancho tugi drogun pushin si Lakpe lai jeson chingi laba nikto drove drembe shenyen cho Namka genzen shabla solwa de Namka genzen shabla sowa de Gyawe donso shenyen poto wa Namcho drenda drawe sharawa Chancho tugi kagab chekapa Drove regon sumla sowa de Drewe regon sumla sowa de Londo ngada jansen chipu pa Drime lungi wancho keba cho Kamson drove gombo rinpoche neden chimbo sumla solwade neden chimbo sumla solwade namda tsudri ngedan sanjenpa duwa bumde ngada tsonampa chungo gatso tarsun mundrapa drove drimba sumla solwade drove drimba sumla solwade sabchin gache chola nganyepe kalden drova kungi kyapsu gyur Trinle sambo temba geze pa panden lame shabla solwa de panden lame shabla sowa de drube wanju chembo tsuldrin bara shenyen tsushin tenze shonu tekcho lamge gyuchan kegom basha gyawe sebo sumla sowa de gyawe sebo sum Mejo yunde zinzin sange un tambe chila namga gyabo dan chikden choge pangbe senge san Gyase sambe shabla sowa de, gyase sambe shabla sowa de, janchu tugi drogun pushin si alhakpe layi jeson chingi lam, nikdu drowa drimbe shenyen chua, namka gyanzen shabla sowa de, namka gyanzen shabla sowa de, mingme tsewe terchen chenre zi, drime kembe wambo jambe liang, Kanche kebe tsugen tsongapa, losan rabe shabla solwa de, losan rabe shabla sowa de, drube wanju jambe gyatso dan, kedru mawe nima gelepe, ningyo dambe tsunzen pasuje, dame lama sumla sowa de, dame lama sumla sowa de, sonjo kyunye chugi dorje dan, kusung ungyur gyawa ensapa, longdo nga dan sangye yeshe sha, Kedru chimbo sumla sowa de losan chegi ganzen zimbe je te tukse kuncho ganzen shab lamsa sedze losan yeshe de jetsun lama sumla sowa de jetsun lama sumla sowa de tupten peze ngawan jamba dan te tukse losan nyendra sha gyatso tabo yun ten tay Tinchen lama sumla sowa de, tinchen lama sumla sowa de, Losan Yeshe Temba Rabge Je Lodro Sambo Drogun Namdroze Losan Gawe Chutsu Jinke Pa Tsungme Lama Sumla Sowa De Tsungme Lama Sumla Sowa De Kesan Namre Shibe Longdo De Shedru Nigi Zinla Datrewa Kadrin Nyangme Tsawe Lama La Gosung Guba Chimba Solwa De Gosung Guba Chimba Sowa De Mangde Dambra Sharwe Kingora Ge Rimni Chebe Rigda Sunyen Khel Kesan Duche Munse Kunde Nye Tembe Tenzin Kedru Shabla Sowa De Tenzin Kedru Shabla Sowa Tusung Kyamne Malu Dube Ko Losan Jambe Lekshe Drunge Sum Lapsong Gudel Hundro Gatso to Tinchen Trube Kula So Kula Sowa De Chamba Tsulden Laso Panorge Tugyo Lekdam Galten Zimbetso Namshi Tinle Gatso Kuchin Yongya Jetsun Lamara Sowa De Yongkyab Jetsun Lamara Sowa De Losan Gawa Kunge Yesheni Chikto Time Galten Zimbetso Ramjan Kilgor Gatso Trudug Trinchen Lame Shabla Sowa De Trinchen Lame Shabla Loja Sambo Pagyu Trashipa Tuche Tempe Tinle Yarngoda Pege Drolo Zambe Zebra Chen Pande Lame Shabla Solwa De Pande Lame Shabla Sowa De Ramchan Sunla Kunla Tawe Mi Kelsan Tarwe Drube Jungocho Tsewe Kyebe Tapge Zeba Ye Seze Shenye Namla Sowa De Seze Shenye Namla Sowa De Pande Lame Namdara Tarpa La Keche Samya Lokta Mikeshin Chize Lekpara Tongwe Mugugi Lame Chinla Semla Jukpara Sho Lame Chinla Semla Jukpara Sho. Richiesta di benedizioni per realizzare i diversi passi nel sentiero all'illuminazione. Yendea Kunge Shinge Trinchenje Tsushin Demba Lamge Tsawaru Lekpara Tongne Beba Tumayi Guba Chembe Tembra Jingelo Guba Chembe Tembra Jingelo Lenche Nyebe Dawe Tensandi Shindu Nyega Tunche Shegyurne Ninsen Kundu Nimbo Lembelo Gyuche Meba Kevra Jingelo Gyunche Meba Kevra Jingelo Loso Yowa Chui Chubrushin Yurdo Jigbe Chiwa Drembadam Shiwe Jesu Ludan Trimashin Karna Ledre Chishin Trawala Ngeba Tembo Nyene Nyebe Tso Trashin Trawa Namkyam Powada Getso Tada Drubara Chebala Takto Pagdan Dembra Jingelo Takto Pagdan Chebe Mingo Dunga Kungi Go Yide Miru Sibe Punsogi Nyemi Rine Tarbe Dewala Tenye Chembo Kevra Jingelo Tenye Chembo Kevra Jingelo Namda Samba Tei Changba Ye Trenda Sheshin Payo Chembo Yi Tembe Tsawa Sosro Tarpa La Druba Nimbro Chebra Jingelo Druba Nimbro Chebra Jingelo Rani Sitsrol Hongwa Chishin Tu Magyuru Drowa Kungan Tedra War Tongne Drowa Drove Kulgerwe Jancho Simcho Jombra Jingelo Jancho Simcho Jombra Jingelo Simsan Kekya Tsudrin Namsula Gomba Mena Lam Jancho Midru Par Lekpara Tongne Gyase Domba La Tsumba Trakbo Lobra Jingelo Tsumba Trakbo Lobra Lokpe Yula Yenwa Shije Shin Yangda Tunla Tsushin Chepa Yi Shinel Hakto Sungdo Drewe Lama Nyurto Gyula Kevra Chingelo Nyurto Gyula Kevra Chingelo Tumo Lamsa Nudu Gyurpa Na Tekpa Kunge Chogyo Dorjete Kesan Kewo Jungo Tamba Tera Dela Nidu Jukbara Chingelo Dela Nidu Jukbara Chingelo Tetse Ngodru Namnye Drube Shin Namda Damse Domba Songba La Chema Mimbe Ngeba Nyegyurene Sogdan Dede Songwara Chingelo Sogdan Dede Songwara Chingelo Tene Gyude Nimbo Rimnyegi Nenam Jishin Tone Tsumba Ye Tushi Nelchura Chule Miye War Dambe Songshi Drubra Chingelo Tambe Songshi Drubra Chingelo Tedra Lamsa Tembe Shenyen Dan Tsushin Drube Drona Shabden Shin Chida Nange Pardu Chebe Tso Nyewra Shivra Ching Nyewra Shivra Chinge Labdo So Kewa Kundu Yanda Lama Dan Cheke Pela Longche Chen Sadan Lamge Yente Rabzo Ne dorje change khapa nyur tobsho, dorje change khapa nyur tobsho. Offerta del mandala in cui facciamo richiesta degli insegnamenti. Sashi peki choshi ameto tamare rabalingashi Sangye Shinto Mikte Ulwarki Drokunam Dashi Chopar Shoy Je Tsong Lame Kotse Rapte Chinam Kar Tingle Cho Pa Lo San Tempe Drume Sa Sum Ki Owe Amun Sela Taktu Ne Gyur Che Yidam Guru Ratna Mindrala Kam Niryatayam Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chanchu Pardo Dani Kyapsu Che Dage Cheshe Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchra Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chanchu Pardo Dani Kyapsu Che Dage Cheshe Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchra Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chanchu Pardo Dani Kyap Dage Chuchin Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchra Sangye Drupar Sho.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
I take refuge into enlightenment through the practice of generosity and the other perfections. May I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Namo ya lai ke da luda nu jin ke rubunda na mi ke nam da drwa kuin ke tanama che tsampa tamche ke to da ge che ten to tamche ke to da ge che ten.
Good morning. Generally speaking, there are two main ways that we could lead our life. One is more common, more spontaneous, let's say, where we try to survive in the most comfortable way possible. So at this first level, first of all, we need to survive, our level of survival, but I don't know how many of us here are physically present here, or those of you watching online, how many of you actually need to think about your own survival. We come from a context where we have this great luck where we take almost for granted to, that we just survive. Have you ever really been afraid of not having food enough to eat, or being cold, freezing to death in the winter? I don't think so. So generally speaking, on this first level, one tries to survive. And in that first approach, once our survival is sure, then we try to avoid suffering as much as possible and to get as many pleasures as possible. At the base, what we don't want to suffer, and we want to be happy. We want to be comfortable. We want this comfortable survival, so life goes on day after day. We do all the things we need to do. As children, we learn how, we go to school so that we can learn how to make a living. And then there are also these human relations that we create within our family, with our friends. And we try in our life to be as well as we can. But actually, the priority that's given is what's happening around me in this first way. Somehow I try to have this comfortable survival. I try to avoid what I don't like, and I try to get what I like. Just in a few words, it's that, without going on too long about it. The other possibility, and even this comes after having assured our survival. This is necessary prerequisite, let's say. If we don't have our survival assured with a minimum amount of comfort, then obviously that would be our priority. But once that is satisfied, the alternative way of living our life is where we have a level of awareness, where we recognize that our life is not made up of, it's not objective, that I'm living what is. The situations that we live, the objects that we interact with, that we possess, or we have this illusion that we possess things, or even the people that we interact with, we have this illusion that we possess them. Or these are not things or situations that we live. They are actually, they're interactions. And what I live, what I touch, what I think that I own, doesn't exist independently from the relationship I have also with myself. So in other words, what I see is not what is, but it's what I see. Let me explain myself better. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but the minimum of explanation. So when we see something, what we see, it's together. It's the light that touches the object. For example, this light that goes to you comes to me in this case, and various frequencies. These various frequencies of light come to my eye that I'm able to recognize, and then there's the part of this eye consciousness that is able to recognize these forms and and lights, and to which I give a meaning. If the eyes change, what I see changes. If I take away my glasses, I can recognize some of you because I saw you before, but actually it's in this first row, it's easy enough, but that even just getting to the third row. So what happens is we have this tendency, for me, we have this perception that the world that we live is something objective when it's subjective. We can't live anything independently from ourselves. And without getting too deeply into this subject, what happens in the second way of living our life with this awareness, we recognize that it's not enough to try to create a perfect world, but we need to find a way to interact in a healthy way with the world that we find ourselves in. And this is the key. I don't know what words to use, but I'm perplexed by, I'm afraid that I see that a tremendous amount of energy is put into creating the world around us, new technologies, constructions, buildings that are incredible, and we do amazing things outside. But at the end of the day, what is the main resource as human beings, that we have here? Our being, human beings itself, it seems like we always want to take care of what's outside ourselves instead of developing ourselves as human beings. Evolution, I think the evolution of human beings we will see it once we have a museum of anger. I mean, imagine how beautiful it is. Or the museum of violence. So we say, look, once this used to happen. Or the museum of depression. The museum of anxiety. In that museum, we have to also show how this unhealthy mechanism was created, and then how we were able to overcome it. Lama Ganshin, sometimes joking a little bit, he would say, you see, he would say to the modern world, we've been able to get to the moon. Well, they tell us at least that it's like this. But well, that's not the point right now. But instead, what have they brought us back from the moon? Some rocks, some sand. But the suffering of human beings goes on, it continues. So there is this constant desire to control, to win over this world outside on a macro level and also on a micro level. In each one's life, we want our house to be like this, the person next to us to be like that, when instead the greatest resource that we have as human beings is ourselves. What this world needs most now is people who are healthy in body and mind, who are joyous, who are balanced, who are full of love. This is what the world needs. And one fundamental characteristic that often we don't take into consideration is that we are beings that we're malleable. We transform according to the interactions that we have. And when we create a kind of interaction, a certain type of transformation come. We transform accordingly, and we can, in this way, teach ourselves to be what we want to be. But it's not an intellectual understanding. We need to repeat it, and then little by little by little it happens. We are made of habits, and one of the greatest things is that we can change and create new habits. This is possible. So that second way is where we say to ourselves, okay, it's okay. We look into the world outside and we want it to be as healthy as possible, but that cannot happen without an awareness and a transformation of how I interact with this world. And that's where we get into this process, which, in my opinion, is one of the greatest challenges of life, which is being able to, little by little, live our lives in a way so that the interactions of life bring us to be more balanced, more loving, more wise, more joyous, a person who's able to live each experience with more balance and with more joy. And how can we do this? Buddhism is not the answer. It is an answer. It's a method, a method that was transmitted and handed down for this goal. And I feel incredibly lucky to be able to access these teachings, these methods that say, okay, you want to transform yourself. You want to reach a state of peace that doesn't depend on external conditions. And you want to live this world and little by little train yourself and transform yourself into a person made of balance and peace. So if you want this, then here's the first step, here's the second step, here's the other step, and it's worked for others in the past. Why wouldn't it work for you too? And this is what we call the Lam Rim. Lam Rim. Lam means path. So the path starts with the idea that I am somewhere, I have a certain state, and I want to get somewhere. I want to become something else, and there's a process to follow to get there. There's no miracle, and there's no, like, not from one instant to another. Lama Ganchen would say, the real miracle is the hard work miracle. It's the hard work miracle that gradually that transformation, that deep transformation comes. How does that happen? What are the steps that we need to do? And this is Rimpa, means stages, passages. So Lam and then Rim. So what are the necessary stages of this path? And we familiarize ourselves with each one of these stages. Now, the path is actually quite simple. What we need actually is simple. But we're a bit complicated, so we try to complicate things to get to this simplicity. But in just a few words, what we need really is to develop love and compassion and altruism. Our ability to expand this feeling of attraction to happiness and aversion to suffering, and not only for myself. I don't want to be happy just for myself, but I want the same for you. I want to get out of suffering, not just for me, but I also want others to be free from their suffering. My happiness is as important as your happiness. My suffering is as important as your suffering, and vice versa. So we need to develop this unconditional love on one side and develop also wisdom, which means having a correct view of reality and be able to live accordingly. To get to this point, there's a whole path. And now we see one step at a time. It was transmitted in Tibet in this way. The first time by Atisha Dimpankara. You can see the illustration of Atisha, this great image dressed in red. He lived in India, actually the present-day Bangladesh, and then India, and then was in Tibet at the beginning of the 11th century. And he is one of the masters that brought Buddhism to Tibet, and our lineage comes through his his teaching. At a certain point, he was asked to give a teaching that was beneficial for the transformation of the mind, and he wrote this text that's called "The Lamp That Clarifies the Path Towards Enlightenment," Chanchu Lamdrum. That became it was a revolutionary text because it took all of Buddha's teachings that are complex, and he put them in a very accessible way, just in step by step. And I can assure you that if you go to read Buddha's sutras, and many are available in English, if you want to read the original sutras, there's a beautiful website. It's called 84,000. It's called 84,000, where there are many, many, many of Buddha's sutras. If you want to read them, in another language, then you can also have them translated, translated online as well. But it's not about just understanding. But even if you do understand something, how can you put it into practice? It's not simple. So that's why we need someone who has traveled this path, who has understood and has created a map for us and acts as a guide. It shows us how to do. And Atisha did this in an excellent way. In the 11th century, that became the main guidelines, let's say, for the practice of Buddhism in Tibet. And then Lama Tsong Khapa, gave his version. One disciple in Tibet gave me this text. He gave me this text, which he gave me this text, and it was printed by hand with very large characters. That's why it seems so big. And it was printed actually where Lama Tsong Khapa gave these teachings originally. So he gave it to me, and he's saying, when you give these teachings, please use this text. And so let's rejoice and remember this direct line that we have with the origin of these teachings. So we have this tendency to want to understand things. So we say, okay, we give Lam Rim teaching, so we want to know what are the passages, what are the steps. But knowing what the steps are is nice, it's important. But we need to know also how to put them into practice. How can I familiarize myself with the preciousness of this life, familiarize myself with the law of karma, so that it's no longer something only conceptual, something that can gradually really touch a deeper part of myself. That's why the whole path is divided into two parts. How to practice, how to train during the meditation sessions, and then what to do in between sessions, between meditation sessions. meditation sessions are necessary because those are the moments where we, let's say, we are doing intensive training. It's like there's the moment where I go to the gym, and then there are the moments where I'm not in the gym. If I have a problem in my back, for example, I go to the gym, I do the specific exercise, or I with my physiotherapist, and I do that intensive workout. But when I'm not there, I need to be careful about how I move and how I lie down, and I try to live those moments outside of that intensive training in such a way that it's not going to damage the work they did when I was training. So, for example, if I'm following a diet, if breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I follow the diet perfectly, but if in between my meals, I eat whatever I want, if I think, no, in my diet, it was written breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It didn't mention anything in between. Obviously, it's not going to work. If I do exercises, and while I'm doing the exercises, and I do them I do them correctly and with all the right intention, but if in between I do some kind of movement that's the opposite of what I'm supposed to be training in, that obviously is not going to help. This brings us this awareness that this transformation, this process of transformation requires constancy. It's not like sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not. No, it's about how do I live my life? Because we're made of habits, and when I start generating a certain kind of thought or having verbal conduct that is coherent with the teachings, little by little I'm transforming my way of thinking, my way of speaking. So we have all this path is all divided between how to practice in session and in between sessions. And in this text, now we are working on how to practice during the session. And sometimes people say, well, how should I start? Where should I start? How should I start the practicing? First of all, the approach towards the path, towards the Dharma, I think it's really about falling in love. Where, first of all, we just need to fall in love, and then we see how we can see all the practical levels, how we can live together, how etc. But first we need this passion, because it's that passion that gives us all the strength to face what comes after. So the passion for sports, for a job, for a career, whatever it is. So first we need this passion to really want to transform inside, and to transform ourselves and those around us. To transforming ourselves, and we transform what's around us completely. I was remembering this encounter I had with these children who had some disabilities, and they were very, very happy. I said, what the world needs now is not people who are intelligent, cognitively intelligent. We need people who are full of love. And there were many, many children with Down syndrome, and most children, the people that I've met with Down syndrome are full of love, which is such a marvelous quality. So what this world needs is beings that are full of love and wisdom and kindness. So transforming ourselves in a more healthy way, let's use this term, is a great gift that we give to the world. And to do this, there's a whole path. we saw that that first part of the path, before we saw that the first step is relying correctly on a spiritual guide. And this applies to everything. If I need to take a course to learn carpentry, I need to rely on someone to teach me. If I want to I want to start a treatment to take care of my teeth, I need to trust someone else. One of the greatest characteristics of our reality, of our society, is trust. And as human beings, we've been able to realize great things and organize ourselves in a particular way. Even if we were to compare ourselves to other species, for example, one main characteristic of human beings is our ability to organize ourselves. And at the basis of this organization, there's trust, which is absolutely fundamental. If I go to a doctor, I need to have trust. And if I follow a treatment, I need to have trust. And if I want to follow an inner transformation, I need to trust the method, the path that I'm going to follow, and the one that who is guiding me. It's fundamental. When there's pure faith, when it's clean, naturally, everything just flows easily. When that trust is not complete, there's maybe preconceived notions, there's a little bit of doubt, it's difficult. Maybe we say, oh, I follow this part because it's interesting, this one I'm not so sure. It's like going to a doctor and I say, okay, I like this medicine, but I'm not going to take that one. No, because for the healing to really happen, I need to trust the doctor's treatment. So the first part of the path is familiarizing ourselves with developing this feeling of trust that's based on falling in love with the Dharma. Why do I trust a dentist? Why do I rely on a dentist? Because he's nice. He can also be nice, but why do I rely on a dentist? Because I need to take care of my teeth. I need someone who's going to help me for this reason. So I rely on a spiritual guide because I want to follow a spiritual path. I'm not exactly sure how to do it, but I trust him. And so today we talked about this distinction about trying to make the world perfect and trying to transform ourselves to be able to live in a harmonious way in the world in which we live. That's the first question we need to ask ourselves. Which way do we live? Remembering that along this process, I've never met anyone who from one day to the next is passed from white to black. I mean, or from 0 to 100. It's gradual. I mean, do we all want a comfortable life? Yes. Yeah, we like eating well. We like having nice people around us. We like having the things that we like. We don't want the things we don't want. But let's try in the middle of all of this that gradually to increase the importance that we give to this inner state of satisfaction, balance, and joy, of love, and diminish the importance that we give to this external world. So when we meditate, let's remember that the word meditate means to familiarize. There's a very important part called the preliminary practices, which means like along these various stages of the path, there are things I need to familiarize myself with. There's relying correctly on a spiritual guide, recognizing the preciousness of this life, recognizing the certainty of death, the uncertainty of the moment of death. There's the law of karma, understanding what samsara is, wanting to get out of samsara, developing love for ourselves, love for others, generosity, morality, patience, enthusiastic effort, concentration, getting all the way to wisdom. I mean, there is a path. These are the stages. But that when we meditate, we need we need to learn how to meditate. And in this process of learning how to meditate, there are things that are they're preparations for the meditation, and it's been for centuries. An enormous importance has been given to these preparations. It's like cooking. It's not about throwing all the ingredients into a pot. No, first we need to go and choose the right raw material. We need to choose the right ingredients. There's all the preparation to then the final thing is to actually cook the dish. But there are preliminary steps. So there are the 6 dharmas of preparations. These are preparations for meditation. So if we want to meditate on something, familiarize ourselves with something, there are 6 things that we need to do first. And when we look at the various Lam Rim teachings, here we have the liberation in our hands. There's an important part that has to do with all of this. In this big book, for example, so over in English it's 3 volumes. In Italian it's 650 pages, and the 6 dharmas of preparation is like a third of that. So I don't want to get into the minimum details of this, also because you know all how to read. The book is available to everyone, and the minimum details, there's all the visualizations, etc. is written. I want to help instead to transmit the meaning of each part. So last time we talked about the preparation of the place and where to sit, the preparation of our body, and the preparation of our mind. We saw how to sit correctly, the meditation on our breath, bringing our mind to a more balanced, neutral state to be able to generate correct motivation. We saw how to generate the right motivation, which is love towards oneself through the taking of refuge. Love towards others through the mind of enlightenment, the so-called bodhicitta, this mind of altruism and love. That's where we got up to, right? Now, the next passages we have how to prepare. Actually, the next step, important step, is to visualize the merit field and the 7-limbed prayers, and then the receiving of blessings. These are the next steps. Here, there are 4 important things. How can we familiarize ourselves with something? How does one familiarize himself with something? Being close to it, being in contact. I can't familiarize myself with something that I'm not in contact with. So the more contact I have with something, the more I familiarize myself with that. I get used to that thing. And here we want to familiarize ourselves with inner qualities. So it becomes very important to have keys that help us somehow to generate those states and connect there. Imagine, for example, someone who represents for you, for example, anger or violence. Are you able to think about someone? When we think about that person with intensity, the tendency in ourselves is to generate what kind of feeling? Aversion. It's possible to get to compassion, but normally we start with aversion. We react maybe in the same way. We connect with that feeling. Think of someone instead that you love very much, and when you're in the presence of that person, you feel a gratitude, for example. Once when I was talking about this, a person talked about his grandmother. Well, when we think about that person, naturally we connect with that feeling. What's important is at the base of the path, there needs to be a feeling of trust in he or she who guides, and also the path itself. But we also need to trust ourselves. It's fundamental for our path to have trust in ourselves. If I don't think that I'm not able to do that path, I won't even start. And then there's another thing is, if I have trust in you and you tell me that I'm able, then I can try. But if just me by myself, no. I think about situations I've lived, for example, or I was following, or then afterwards where I was also guiding. So when you guide someone in a certain direction and and you have faith, you do things that you may never even dreamed of. You see then that you're able. So the figure of the spiritual guide, the so-called guru, is a figure. It's not someone that we worship. He or she represents the trust that we have in our spiritual practice, that we have in ourselves. So after having taken refuge, or having done the practice of taking refuge, we reconnect with this feeling of, which is fundamental for the path, which is faith, this trust. So we connect with the image of our own guru. And there are also two fundamental things that we need to do. We need to accumulate merit and purify negativities. Like saying, how can I explain this well? Here we have a technical problem here. Let's try to overcome this. There's a fundamental, there's a concept that doesn't have a word in Italian or in English. So in Tibetan, sonam, in Sanskrit, punya, sometimes translated as merit, but it's really not a great translation, because sometimes we use a word in English, Italian, whatever it is, to translate a concept for something that we don't really even have. So we use a word, but it doesn't work well, because when we say merit, we already have an idea of what merits are, but it's not this. So what happens is the following. There are no results without having created the causes. Whatever we experience is the result of actions that we've done previously. When we do something, we create an interdependence, we create a kind of a chain of interactions that will bring a certain type of result. And we create also what's called karmic force. Karmic force is like the energy that is generated in doing something and interacting with doing something that sooner or later will interact with something else and transform into something. Yeah, as an example, if I take this stick and I throw it, the action ends once I open up my hand. I do the movement and I open my hand and the stick goes in the air. So the action of throwing ends, but the stick is continuing. So what's getting that stick to fly? That force, that energetic force. And when it comes into contact with another force, it will transform into something else. So that first force it comes into contact with is the force of gravity, for example. Because without the force of gravity, if without the atmosphere, I would, if I threw this stick without atmosphere, without gravity, it would just go on and on and on until it hits something else, somebody in the head, for example. I don't know. But here with gravity, it is pulled towards the center of the earth, and it then comes into contact with another force. Without this other force, what would the tendency? I would throw it, and it would go with the same intensity until it didn't come into contact with another force. Any action that we do is a physical interaction, verbal, or even mental, that generates this inertia, this strength, this force that's called the force of the action, karmic force. Are you following? These forces, they can be distinguished in three types. The type of force depends on the kind of result. And we experience the result through a sensation. When it's pleasurable, it's the result of a so-called positive action. It's a positive karmic force. So when those results are manifested, that brings an inner sensation of pleasure. We have a sensation of, sometimes we can have a sensation of suffering. That would be the result of a so-called negative negative action, or we have a neutral sensation, and that comes from a neutral, having done a neutral action. So if I want to have a lot of pleasurable sensations, I need to generate positive karmic karmic forces. If I want to avoid negativities, I need to avoid doing negative actions. So if I, regardless of how much I work on a conceptual level or of understanding impermanence and not reacting in this way, seeing the negative aspects of anger, seeing the positive aspects of patience, and just no matter how much I want to develop love, those states of mind that uphold these positive mental states can't be upheld without the positive, without this positive karmic force. So once I generate these positive minds, I need a lot of positive karmic force to uphold and keep those minds. So along this process, together with the mental analysis and meditation, we need to also generate that positive karmic force that actually supports the development of these positive minds, the development of patience and morality, etc. So along the path, we need that part where we understand, where we familiarize ourselves, on a mental level, where we put into practice, and then there's the suksa, which has to do with the accumulation of positive accumulation of a positive karmic force and the elimination of negative karmic force, which in our Western world, I see that it's a little bit difficult for us to understand this part. It's explained, and I'm very convinced that if we don't accompany our path with the intellectual part, or with this part, it's not intellectual. It's where we generate this positive karmic force, and we purify the negative karmic force that we've of our past. Then it all stays intellectual. I've seen too many situations where one can be an expert on the graduated stages of the path and know everything by heart. But what we want, we don't want experts in the stages of the path. We want to walk this path. What we want is to develop trust, understand that trust is, and this faith is important, but we want to develop it ourselves. And in this part that comes with this accumulation of positive karmic force and oppose negative karmic force, this is absolutely fundamental. So we have creating this closeness with this feeling of faith. We accumulate merit or positive karmic force. We purify the negative one. Then we'll explain what that means to oppose, to purify. And then we ask for blessings. And we'll also get into the details on the how and the why. So first, before we actually meditate, what are the necessary steps? We need to prepare the place. We need to prepare ourselves, the place where I sit, prepare our altar. We make the offerings, and we look at how to sit comfortably, the right cushion, the right posture. We prepare our mind through our breath. We generate the correct motivation, love towards ourselves, love towards others, that comes with the taking of refuge and the generation of bodhicitta. And then we generate the merit field, and this is where we have arrived. So first of all, a merit field. In Tibetan, it's called Dzogchen. When we say merit, when you hear merit field, what do you think of? You think about lots of merits together. I mean, what's the idea of a merit field? It's represented from this image. At the center, there's Lama Tsong Khapa or Shakyamuni, depending on how it's done, with many other sacred figures around. Very often, it gives this idea of many holy beings together, but the concept is another. A field is understood as a plot of land. A shin in Tibetan is where there are crops. There's a plot of land, and it's a fertile plot of land to generate positive karma, which will generate this merit. Which are the positive and right conditions to be able to generate positive karmic force. Generally speaking, the easiest, the best way to generate positive karma is by offering, by being generous. And there are two different categories. We can offer to, how can I say, those who have a spiritual level, who are equal or less than us, or to those who are spiritually more advanced. If we make an offer to those who are like us, it's an act of generosity. We call that an act of generosity. Instead, if it's towards someone who has already gotten out of this state of suffering and has a higher level of love and wisdom, we call it an offering. But the fact of offering, of sharing, this is one of the quickest and the most powerful ways to to generate this positive karmic force. Saying, using this passage, Shimpe, says Shimpe Longchu. So Longchu means to receive. So like San Francis, who says it's by giving that we receive, and also there's a sutra that says the same thing, that that we receive by giving. So we're receiving positive karmic force when we're giving, and that becomes the support to uphold these positive minds. So I can offer to sentient beings or to holy beings. And in this case, we are going to concentrate. We had visualized all the holy beings around us. So, I'm sorry, we had visualized all sentient beings around us when we took refuge. We had our mother on our left, our father on our right, all of those acquaintances, the ones we have trouble with, etc. We visualized, all these lights and nectars were coming towards all beings and transforming in. They were transforming and getting out of their cycle of suffering. Now we are offering to Guru Buddha, the essence of the merit field, the personification of love and wisdom, the embodiment of who I want to become, starting with inner qualities, a person of peace, of balance, of wisdom, of love. So the Guru Buddha, our Buddha. So to do this, the first thing we need to do is to visualize. And in this process of visualization, so we go from generating our motivation to the actual process. So we have the image of Guru Buddha in front of us, maybe in the image of Buddha Shakyamuni. I had already explained before. There's a very complete and complicated image, and here in the text of Liberation of the Palm Ram, you see all the details of the five thrones, etc. And then there's this dissolution of the object of refuge. And this is a part of the practice that I personally like very much, where we visualize this refuge field, this Buddha Shakyamuni who's in front of us. There are three possibilities, actually. The first, what I personally prefer, it transformed into golden light. So Guru Buddha transforms into golden light, comes towards us, enters into our forehead, enters into our central channel, and into our heart. The other was simply Guru Buddha dissolves simply and disappears. And the third way, Guru Buddha, we had taken refuge, generated bodhicitta. He comes towards, he goes up. He comes up, and then we make a new visualization, and then absorbs into this new visualization. I prefer that he dissolves into golden light, enters into our forehead, and then the beginning. He enters into our central channel, expands through our entire body, and eliminates all tensions, eliminates all negativities and sicknesses. And for details, we could say this light is the nature of healing and wisdom and love. It's light with nectar that when it comes through our crown and it goes into our central channel, which is our spinal column. He goes actually where there would be the center of our spinal cord, and then there are all the channels that make up all of our lymphatic system. You can imagine that it just goes through our entire body, every tiny nerve, our nervous system, our lymphatic system, every part of our body, and dissolving every kind of sickness and negativity, and bringing a great state of wellness. And here, this is very important, just on a side note. Where is our mind? If we were to point our finger in our body, where is our mind? Our tendency is to say that it is linked to our brain. And there are many explanations about that, but I mean, reasons for that. But if we were to analyze a little more deeply without going too much into it, but our mind is strongly related to everything, and so our emotional well-being, our mental state also depends on the various hormones. But are all the hormones generated in the brain? No. So what about does the liver have anything to do with our emotional state of being? Or what about our kidneys? What about our digestive system, our heart, etc., etc.? So what happens is, as these light rays and nectar come and they go through every part of our body, we imagine every tension, anything that is, any blockage is absolutely melted, and it's deep, deep harmony is generated. So it's a psychophysical harmony. It's not something just, something mental and something physical or separate. No, mind and body are always together. So what happens is, once there's a physical transformation, there's a mental transformation, and vice versa. They go completely together. So when we do this visualization, it's not we're cleaning our body. Our mind and the body they're one thing. So we imagine this light rays and nectar that come in, and if there's some kind of a specific problem somewhere, we can imagine that these tensions are relaxed. They disappear, and it brings our mind and body to a great state of peace and balance and joy. And so these light and nectars, they expand through our entire body, and then they touch our entire environment around us. Our surroundings become light, as if everything gets dissolved and becomes light. And in this great luminous void, from this great luminous void, the universe arises again. Imagine, even when it's our small room, we imagine that we're in this enormous place, a beautiful, beautiful nature, beautiful place. Usually we say visualize the snow capped mountains and rivers and forests, and every part of of nature transmits the Dharma. We imagine this beautiful place where we find ourselves, and we ourselves have a body of light with a central channel. We're very balanced. Our 5 chakras are strong and balanced. And then we visualize in front of us our merit field with our Buddha. This specific point that we described, this dissolution of the merit field, of the refuge field, it's not something you can find written. So in the various manuals that were handed down over the centuries, this part was not described, because this part needs to be transmitted orally. It's it's not something that you read and that's enough. It needs absolutely to be transmitted orally. As I said before, there are 3 ways you can do the dissolution, and the one I prefer is where the light rays and nectar, where the guru dissolves into light rays and nectars. And these light rays and nectars, this is Guru Buddha himself or herself, love with wisdom. Imagine the essence of our own Guru, inseparable from all holy beings, comes into our central channel, where is our mind on a deeper level, and we become one. We can do very long meditations on this, but just in a few words, let's allow ourselves to receive this blessing of joy and peace, and we expand it outwards, and then everything dissolves into this. It dissolves into this the bright, luminous void, which is also void or lacking intrinsic existence. And then from that, the universe arises, and we, in our body of light, we arise. And we're in a very beautiful, beautiful environment. And I leave everyone their own creativity. It's described also in text, but you can see for yourself what is good for you. So even this practice that we're doing now, there's a very strong part of imagining. So here I'm in this place where I'm going to invite all these holy beings. And the part that comes after is the purification of the place. So we have this also in the Guru Puja. In the Guru Puja, actually, so from verse 1 to verse 84, actually, these are the preliminaries to meditation. We can call them the 6 dharmas of preparation. So they've been transmitted from generation to generation. There were other masters who said, okay, let's write them down, putting them into verses, helping practitioners do one step at a time. And the Guru Puja is that, and it became a kind of ritual, but it's an actual practice for the inner transformation. And the shorter version we have in the sadhana of self-healing, or we have that small. We also have that small book. It's called the Peace Prayer Messengers. It's very convenient to have that with you. And there you can see the preliminary practices. It's really beautiful, and I invite everyone to read them, to study them, because they are the various passages to do for these steps. So we have something that helps us to remember what we're supposed to do. And the part that's not explained in the practice and the preliminary practice is that dissolution of the refuge field. And the specific reason is because it needs to be transmitted orally. After this, we have the purification of the place, where we imagine from our heart light rays go to the entire environment around us and eliminate any kind of conflict, negativity, pollution, anything of that nature around us is completely eliminated. After which we visualize in front of us many, many beautiful offerings. And these offerings should be visualized. It's not the offering that the Buddha likes. It's what we want to offer. As we said before, one of the best ways to accumulate positive energy is by offering. So what am I offering? Normally what we offer the objects of the five senses. So what we see, what we hear, what we, we can smell, what we can taste, what we can touch. So, and if you go and see, very often in the tankas and in sacred images, you can see these objects of the five senses. For example, I see one here right away. You look over there. You see where there's the translation booth. There's on the left, there's Nagarjuna. You can see under Nagarjuna, there's something round and blue with two orange things. So the round thing is a mirror. So what that's form, what you see, and the things in front, they're like the symbols for sound. There's fruit and food, and then there's also if that's taste, and then there's a scarf for touch, and then there's also a kind of conch shell where perfume was put. So we don't need to put those specific things, but things related to the five senses. So when before lunch, before eating, for example, what do we mention? When you think about Italian food, for example, do you think about potatoes and I mean, you think about what's best for you according to your culture, to your tastes. So flowers and perfumes. I mean, the most beautiful things that we think are beautiful. It's all relative. So what do we think is beautiful? We imagine all of that in front of us. After having done this visualization, we imagine all these beautiful things, like an enormous banquet. And it's also like when we invite someone, before inviting someone, we need to clean up our house, right? We purify the space. So we clean it and we prepare the meal. So we visualize all these offerings and we purify these offerings. So here we visualize it above these offerings. There are 3 dots of light that vibrate with this sound, So we have Om, Ah, and Hum. So Om is white, and then there's a red Ah, and then below there's a blue Hum. You can imagine in the form of the syllable. But if you understand Tibetan, but it's just the representation of the sound. So one of the easiest ways to visualize an actual dot of light, colored light that vibrates with the sound, the white Om, the red Ah, and the blue Hum. From the Om, Ah, Hum, light rays emanate. They go to all the Buddhas. They touch all the sacred beings and bring their blessings back in the form of white lights. They absorb into the Om. But so blessings of body, speech, and mind. So the white lights absorb into the Om. The red lights absorb into the Ah, and the blue lights into the Hum. Body, speech, and mind blessings, respectively. And then we imagine that the Hum dissolves into the offerings, the Om, and into the Ah, and the. When they dissolve into the offerings, we imagine, for example, like if you a drop of food coloring or something into a liquid, it just it expands completely. So this completely takes away any form of impurity with the Hum. Then the Ah transform into the offering. So it transforms all the offerings into nectar of medicine that heals. And there are three types of nectar, actually. There's the nectar of medicine that cures all illnesses. There's the nectar of immortality that's immortality is when one is able to transcend death. Once you have a body, you die. But when we talk about immortality, it doesn't mean about living in this body forever. I mean, imagine if dying and dying and being born again was just like going to sleep and waking up again, and there's no real death. This is what we mean by immortality. Because otherwise, we say, may I reach immortality? No, this body has the nature of degenerating. So on one level, we talk about familiarizing ourselves with death, and then we talk about the realization of immortality. No, it's not about living forever in this body. It means we generate a level of understanding, of awareness, of an inner realization where this process of death and bardo and rebirth is lived similar to going to sleep and dreaming and waking up. There's a sense of continuity and connection. We're immortal in this sense. And then there's the nectar of the Dharma that eliminates mental defilements. These are the three nectars. And here, when we have, for example, this image of Je Tsong Rinpoche, can you see there are two flowers, no? So on one flower, there's a bell that represents these two objects, for example, that represent the method and wisdom, love and compassion, and the correct view of reality. So the balance between masculine and feminine energies. So this shows that Je Tsong Rinpoche, he does not only have these qualities, but he can also show us how to reach them. On the other hand, you see there's a kind of flower that comes from his hand, and it goes and it upholds a vase, and within that vase there's the nectar of immortality. It's like the Holy Grail. That is, it's not something physical that we need to find. It's the same vase, but it symbolizes the immortality. And what is that? The Dharma. It's the practice of Dharma that allows us to overcome our mental defilements and reach those qualities, and it's represented by this nectar. So in this image, we see that Je Tsong Rinpoche possesses the knowledge, the experience of the Dharma that he can give to us. It's represented by this vase. That's the symbolism, the meaning of the symbolism. So when we, in this moment, when the nectars transform into nectar, they become pure, and they have this ability to cure sicknesses, generate an inner state of wellness and peace. We imagine the offerings that has a power. I mean, just coming into contact with those offerings generate an enormous state of well-being and happiness. And then the Om dissolves into. So first the Hum gets rid of all the impurities. The it turns all the offerings into nectar, and then the Om dissolves into the nectars, multiplying it. It's not that it's multiplying in the sense that it becomes infinite. It's like a vase that you can pour, and it's never going to run dry. So this purification of the offerings with the Om Ahum is what we do also when we eat. So first we purify. So before eating, we imagine Om Ahum. We receive all the blessings from the holy beings, and then they dissolve into the food, immolating impurities, transforming into nectar, and it becomes abundant, and and everything we need, and of the nature of body, speech, and mind of all the holy beings. So we can do this all before we drink, before we eat. Om Ahum. Normally we recite it 3 times, because the first time we visualize the Hum, and then the Ah, and then the third um, 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 the the Om, or you can visualize the first time the light rays go out to the Buddhas, arrive to the Buddhas, um, and then they absorb into the Om Ahum, and then into the food. So these are just little techniques to remember, to keep this awareness. So we imagine the offerings, we purify the offerings, and then we invoke the power of truth. And that's to take away our own uncertainties. So, okay, what do I want to offer? I have nothing to offer. This is just all imagining, maybe. But here we invoke this power of this 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 strength of one's own Guru Buddha that you are going to invoke. So, like, so for example, this is an important concept. So I can't force anyone to experience something. So when you look at the law of karma in more detail, the causes are created by ourselves, and the conditions are of 2 types. There are external and internal conditions. Internal, there's our own body and mind. The external conditions are the interactions with others. So me towards someone else, I can only be a condition. What the other person experiences is the result of one's own causes that they created together with the karmic force of the past, and the conditions that they meet. So our Guru Buddha is only is a condition. It's like saying, I can give the best. I can give the best, but maybe it's not right for you. I mean, I've offered you something really delicious, but maybe you created causes in the past, and you don't that you find that food horrible. So here, what we experience is not fruit of what is given to us, but it's the fruit of the causes that we have created in the past with the conditions of this present moment, inner conditions and outer conditions. So, for example, I've tried to help people. For example, no matter how much I tried to help these people, it seemed like it was just impossible. In one case, for example, in India, there was this young girl, actually there was a young woman with a child, and she would go asking for. She would go around begging, and she was deaf and dumb, and she had great trouble. Sometimes she'd ask for money, and I would always give her money and food. And once she came with her small child, and once Sharon was there, and at that point we had rooms in the south of India. Now that it's in we have them in Nepal. So I was thinking, let's try to find her a sponsor. And Sharon took photos, and we found people who wanted to do everything for her. They were. I tried so much to help her, but it was impossible. I also looked for a school where she could go. I went to the school. It was like 8 hours by bus to get there. Went there and back. I would say, okay, how can we manage? And as we were there near Kushnagar, near the small near this we're in the small town, from the small town of the monastery. Anyway, it also came from a lower caste. I did everything that I could. At the end of the day, we just weren't able to help them. And the feeling was, you create the conditions, but on the other side, there's something really missing. And no matter how much you give, the other person just doesn't have the ability to receive. And an extreme example would be, and this is much more extreme, it's like when someone is in it's total starvation. Historically speaking, we look back at the end of the Second World War. There were just hundreds of thousands of people who were starving, literally starving. So you want to give someone food when they're starving, but they would give people the food, and they would die from the food that they were eating, because when the body is so immense, is so emaciated, the body can't assimilate the food. So I think it took a year or 2 years. I mean, they were trying with different types of food. I mean, trying to figure out how they could nourish these beings. Just imagine the frustration. Of course, now we have the knowledge, how to face such a situation. So if it's like someone who is in need, and you have all the conditions to help that person, but it's not working. Or, for example, there could be situations. I mean, there are people who just have difficult dynamics. You try to help them, and no matter what you do, it's just not working. There's something missing, something lacking on their side. So you create these conditions. But if there aren't the inner conditions, or if the causes are missing, it's not going to give any fruit. Instead, when we try to help someone who has all of those causes, has created all those causes, it's very easy. Imagine someone who has a very healthy body. No matter what you give that person to eat, that person finds it, pleasurable. Or if someone who's balanced and peaceful and joyous, or satisfied, no matter what gift you give, that person is happy. And it's not because you've given a beautiful gift. No, it's because that person has a very, very solid sense of balance and satisfaction. So is it easy to give? Is it easier to give a gift to someone who is always dissatisfied or satisfied? Someone who's strongly dissatisfied and always, is always complaining or whatever. No matter what you give them, they won't find pleasure in it. So, in other words, is it easier to give something to a sentient being or to a Buddha? To a Buddha. So, in this moment, the offerings, we invoke the power of truth. We say, I've made the offerings to the best of my quality, but So, but given that you are well, no matter what I give you, it'll be wonderful. It will be joyous. I don't know if this is all clear. So, so here we say, when you make an offering from our side, the most thing, the most important is to offer the best. And when we talk about the best, people ask, well, how much should I offer? You should offer what is not too much or too little. If I'm going to make a physical offering, I should offer something that is not too much, but not too little. I don't do it just to do it, like just nothing. And or someone staying there with a little bit of attachment, and or one has giving this gift, but is still kind of holding on to it in a miserly way. No, we offer freely. So this is a general offer. When we make a gift or make an offering to, regardless of the context, so it should be given. What should be given should be not too little and not too much. There's this beautiful story. These two children who meet Buddha Shakyamuni, and they see Buddha, and they had great faith towards him, and they wanted to offer something. And they were poor; they didn't have anything, and Buddha was there with his bowl, for begging bowl, and they said, well, okay, let's make an offering to Buddha. And so they went. He was very, very tall. So one took some sand from the dirt from the ground, got on the shoulders of the other, and went towards Buddha and poured the dirt, the golden sand, into his bowl of food, imagining that it was gold, and he received it as something absolutely marvelous. And he was the Buddha. I mean, they offered the best of what they could, and it's said that that lives later, about 300 years later, that one of these children was born as King Ashoka. It's because that offering with that attitude was so marvelous. So what determines an offering is not what is offered, but how it's offered. And in this case, we have these offerings imagined in the best way possible. If we have a physical offering, flowers or the water bowls or candles or incense, imagine that it just multiplies and multiplies. And they transform, they're purified with Om Ahum, and they're pure, not because we've just offered the best, but they're pure also through the power of who receives them. And we conclude this part of the offerings. There are more details. The verses that we recite at this the verses that we actually recite when we make these offerings. He was saying, Tamshi Duni Sashi. I don't. Now he doesn't remember. That was it. This be the purification of the sight. Was Tamshi Duni Sashi Dasim and Lasome Padang, Ratetanya Bendurie, Rashin Jampurne Gyurrechi, the transformation of the offerings, Ladami, Chipitse, no Sunyudu Katitru, etc. And then we have the offering mantra of Samantabhadra. Why are they called the offerings of Samantabhadra? Because he was one of the disciples of Buddha, and he developed a very special technique for offering. So as he would make offerings, he would visualize that from his heart, many many divinities, offering divinities, come from his heart, and from the pores of their bodies, other offering deities with offerings come out. So light rays come out with more offering deities that, and from the pores of those offerings, etc., etc., etc. So it's just expanded. So it's offering the best. So when we talk about offering like Samanta Brada, we're offering something that goes beyond our own limits, our own limitations. The verse for this is this, Om Namo Bhagavate Benza Sarva
Benzema, Tetsa Benzema, Vidya Benzema, Bodhicitta Benzema, Bodhimandupa Sankramana Benza Sarva Karma Avarana Vishodhana Benza Swaha.
This is the mantra of the cloud of offering, and then after, in the preliminary prayers, when we say Koncho Sungi, that's where we invoke the power of the truth. We say, okay, these offerings that I visualized through you, through your power, may they become real. But why do we make offerings? First of all, it's of great benefit to us. It's not something, to receive blessings, first I need to make offerings, otherwise they're not going to give me. No. Offerings are where we materialize these inner aspects that don't have form. Like when we give a gift to someone. So let's forget about the times when we're quote unquote like forced to give a gift. Then you go to somebody's birthday, you have to bring a gift. No, imagine that you give a gift to someone, not because you have to, because you are happy to give a gift. Normally, what are the feelings behind a gift? Friendship, gratitude, love. I feel gratitude for something that you've done for me, and I want to manifest. I want to show the affection, respect, love. And in that gift, very often, it's the way that we materialize a feeling that we have. And when I give this gift, I reinforce that feeling. It's very powerful. So materializing that gift is very powerful to reinforce those feelings when materialize those feelings. This is some advice that I give. If we see that if we have a positive feeling like towards our parents, towards our children, towards a spouse, a friend, or whoever it is, we see that there's a feeling of love, affection, gratitude, etc. Materializing that by offering flowers or something to eat or a little gift, whatever it is. It doesn't depend on the material worth, but for us, what's not too much or too little. And by doing that, we are reinforcing the feeling that we have. Is that clear? So this helps with friendship. It helps with, within a couple. I mean, these positive feelings that we want to nourish. And it's interesting because sometimes, for example, often I've seen people would come to Lama Gachin for advice when they had conflicts at home. I mean, it's part of life. And I saw him often offer this advice, and it worked well. So if there's tension, and the two people are not able to interact except through that kind of tension, you need to break up that tension. If we try to talk or we try to see each other, and every time there's something, there's that tension in between, we can't overcome it. So Rinpoche would say, send flowers. I'm going to send flowers to that person. No way. No, no, no. Send flowers. When you send flowers with this intention of peace and respect, gratitude, love, affection, it's not said that for 100% sure that that the person will receive it in a positive way, but at least that person has the opportunity to connect with another aspect, a positive aspect, and instead of through that tension. Because often in many human conflicts, there's like a wall that just doesn't allow for things to flow. But if you break down that wall, things are fine. And so often by materializing something, some kind of gift, a flower, something, but with the right intention, and that makes it makes that makes all the difference. I mean, if you just do it just to make oh, okay, I'm gonna okay, you know, you're if you even send jewelry, just to quiet the other person, that's not going to work. But if you really with the right intention, materializing something with the right intention has great power. And what do we want? What feeling do we want to cultivate towards a Buddha? Trust, gratitude, love. And so these offerings are like a basis to materialize these feelings. After having prepared the offerings, we go to generate our merit field. So it's like saying, I clean the house, I prepared the food, now I'm going to call my guests. And here, something very important that we looked at last time. We talked about the commitment being, and the wisdom being, and let's just very quickly go over it in case some of you were not here. It's really, really important, and many aspects and many practices are based on this. As you see me, for example, what do you see? Do you see me? Or you see my body? Or do you see the image of my body? What do you see? The image of my body, but through this image of my body, you're connecting with my being. I mean, and if I hear the voice of someone or I see the outline of somebody's body, we connect with that person, and we're not made of only body, only the mind, or only the voice. It's a togetherness of all this. So we use the term samaya sattva in sattva, which samaya is like commitment, but in this context, the meeting point would be a better translation. This is a place that connects two places. And then we have the Jnana Sattva, which is the wisdom being, not wisdom like ignorance and wisdom, but wisdom being like the being in his or her profound state. Like if we see someone, there's the image of that person, which is the commitment being, the meeting point, and then there's the wisdom being, which is not one thing, but it's for example, if we see here this image that represents this photo of Lama Caroline, when we see this image, our mind, what does it connect with the image, with this photo, or with Lama Caroline? What do we think about? Okay, the points of light that come to our eyes with with colors and form. No, we connect with the person. And this means that the commitment being, this meeting point is the photo. And the wisdom being is Lama Caroline herself. So it's not necessarily like in this moment where you see me, what you see is the commitment being actually that connects with the wisdom being. And it's the same thing when I see you. As we hear the sound of someone, for example, that voice is the commitment being. It's the being that helps us connect with the wisdom being. And here there's an aspect that's important as well, that the being in general, there are two types of phenomena, is Zayu and Dagyu in Tibetan. The definitions are, what does this mean? A Zayu phenomenon, I don't know how to explain it, it's or translate it, is to be able to perceive that phenomenon, we need to be able to perceive a part of that phenomenon. If you see someone, do you see the person, or first do you see his or her form, or the voice, or actually a part of the person to get to the person, the table? First, you need to see one side of the table, a leg of the table that takes you to the table, and then there are other phenomenon where you see that one and you see the whole immediately, like time, for example. A second is a part of time, but that's time, or colors like blue. You don't need to perceive a part to then see the whole. You perceive directly the whole. Color, time, space. The mind is like this as well. It's mind. Regardless of what aspect of the mind it is, it's always mind. When you see my pinky finger, it's not my being, but through my pinky, if you know me really well, you can also recognize me. Same thing with the voice, etc. So a part of that being helps us, a part of the being connects to the whole. And this whole we can call the wisdom being. And what's interesting is that once we've made that connection from the part to the whole, any part takes us to the whole. And it's very powerful because it's not something we stop to think about. When I have a photograph of someone, actually that photo is a bridge, and through that photo I connect with that person. If I hear that person's voice, it's a bridge. His name is a bridge. Even if I just, without looking at the picture, and I just say Lama Caroline, naturally those of you who know her directly or indirectly, I mean, maybe you know her indirectly, you don't have your own experience, but you know who she is, you've heard of her, or if you know her directly, if I say Lama Caroline, you connect with her. So in the life of, in our everyday life, we have this relationship with this meeting point, the commitment being. It can be something physical, a physical form, a sound, etc., a smell. For example, one of the when I remember Lama Ganchen's smell, he had such a beautiful smell. So just if I connect with him immediately. I mean, there are some people we're able to connect with someone through their scent. So this commitment beings, the samaya sattva, can be form, sound, any one of our five senses, or even imagine. It can come also from the sense of our mind. So if I imagine that person, the image that I create in my mind is that bridge that helps, that connects me directly to the wisdom being, the jnana sattva. And even words, this is something really interesting. Words, they, it's, you have to force it a little bit. You have to change the terms a little bit. But the word love is a bridge that connects us to a feeling. So the word that we hear is the bridge that connects us to the wisdom being, which is the feeling. One of the fundamental points is the following: when I think about you, I'm connecting with you, I'm communicating with you. This process of communication is not only coarse through words. We have this ability to communicate mind to mind. Some people say it's not true. Some people say that it's not scientifically proven. I'm talking from my own experience, and we need to follow our experience. And it makes me laugh when we talk about this. There are many, many ways that we can see that animals have this this ability, or birds, for example. How is it possible that they can fly all together? I mean, there are many studies about that, but it's too fast the way they move. I mean, they can also become like one thing, or maybe it's said that the dogs know when their owners are coming home. But has it ever happened that you think about someone and then they call you? There's the scientist Rupert Sheldrake who studied this, and he saw that when we think about someone and they call us, is because before we call someone, we think about that person. So I'm thinking about you, and then the call, and then I call. So it's also said in ancient texts that when I'm thinking about you, I'm communicating with you. It depends on how open you are to perceiving that. And then also think about me having this interaction, this exchange. So when I imagine the Buddha, I imagine my Guru. When I have an image, that image is the bridge that connects me with my Guru, with the Buddha, with Tara, with that holy being. When I see the image, naturally I connect with the commitment being, and through the commitment being, naturally with the wisdom being. It's automatic. And try to look at the picture of Lama Caroline and not think of Lama Caroline. You're not able. The only way is not having any awareness of who she is. If I didn't know her, then I would look at that picture and I would say, there's a photo of a woman. But if you know her, it's impossible not to connect with her. So if once someone is introduced to a master, to a lineage, or an empowerment, this is when the introduction happens, that contact, that connection automatically is there. When I think of Guru Buddha receives that thought, and that automatically manifests in me. So it's also said, where there's the body of the body of the Buddha, there's the mind of the Buddha. Where there's the commitment being, there's the wisdom being. So we generate our commitment being and connect with our wisdom being, and this is through our visualization. Who are we going to visualize? Guru Buddha, um, Lama Lobsang, Duan Dorje Chang. So it's visualizing our guru inseparable in the aspect of Lama Tsong Khapa, inseparable from Buddha Shakyamuni and Vajradhara. This could mean a lot or nothing at all. In just a few words, what is it? We visualize our own guru. And why visualize our guru and not Buddha Shakyamuni? We need to generate a feeling of trust and faith. Is it easier with someone that we know, that we've connected with, or a historical figure? Normally with someone that we actually know. So when we create this relationship of trust, we visualize. Here we visualize our guru here, Lama Tsong Khapa, with our guru in the form of our guru at his heart. And then with Vajradhara at the heart of our root guru. Vajradhara is blue in color and with the hugging mudra with Dorje and bell, representing the right hand is the masculine energy, method, love and compassion, bliss, and the left hand is the feminine energy, wisdom, and together they represent the non-dual non-dual union of bliss and emptiness. Emptiness, the correct view of reality. So we have our guru, and at his heart, our guru in the form of our guru in the form of our guru, with Buddha Shakyamuni at his heart, and at the heart of Buddha Shakyamuni there's Vajradhara at the heart. So, and at the essence of the Buddha is this union of method and wisdom, or bliss and emptiness. So we can complicate it a lot or simplify. You can get into thousands of details where they're all the lineage gurus. Here, for example, let's look. I think it's in the other book. There's a very large image of. I'll bring it for the afternoon. But this requires a great skill in visualizing. It's not simply imagining like a painting. No, we are imagining we are in the presence of. I remember when Lama Michel Rinpoche left his body soon after. I think it was the summer after we had retreat here of the practice of Guru Yoga and the accumulation of his mantra, where we would do the visualization as described in the Guru Puja. And I remember many people who said, now I understand why we should visualize and how much it really works. You feel like you're in the presence of. When you imagine and you have that being in front of you, and you generate that inner sense, inner feeling of refuge and faith and trust, and trust in ourselves. I mean, if I have full trust in my masters and they have full trust in me, then I can trust myself too. I can have trust in myself. And so we visualize Guru Buddha in front of us. And this is an important moment. Let's remember that when we're in the physical presence of someone, the mind is there. But when we're in the presence of someone, it depends also on the attitude that we have. Sometimes we're in the presence of someone, but we're actually closed off. I can be in your presence, but I don't feel anything. You're there. I don't open myself up to you. I don't feel your needs. I don't see your qualities. I'm not open to you. There are other times we're with others and we are with someone else and we really open up and we can see others. And then we can have a deeper exchange. So when we visualize Guru Buddha, what allows for this deeper exchange is this feeling of gratitude and faith. I recognize the benefit that I'm receiving and I recognize your qualities. And when you put those things together, that really makes for a greater exchange. I've seen many occasions where I've been in front of someone. I mean, and that difference between being open or not with open or not. I mean, that really changes everything. If I'm open to you, that for better or worse, if you're open to someone, if you're open to receiving from someone who is nervous and anxious, if you don't open to that aspect, it doesn't touch you. And there are other times when we do open up and then we can become more vulnerable to such feelings. But here we visualize Guru Buddha, and it's not just because, okay, this is part of this is part of the practices. I need to do this, and no. We need to really open up, and when we're able to do it, we feel that something's moving within. It's difficult to put into words because it really goes beyond words. But when we're able to open up, there's this power of being touched to develop the best part of ourselves. This is something that we learn how to cultivate. It's also the process of visualizing, making offerings, so that we connect with gratitude, with love, with faith, and so that we can develop it ourselves. It becomes the basis of trust in ourselves, the trust in the path, which then is going to be the necessary support for what we do afterwards. So we visualize Guru Buddha in front of us. As I said before, there are very complicated, detailed visualizations. If someone is able and wants to do it, in the book of the liberation in the palm of your hand, or liberation in our hand, you can go and read. At the basis, we visualize our Guru as we know him, or in the aspect of Lama Je Tsong Khapa, representing the inseparability of all holy beings. Someone might ask me, what's the best? From my point of view, there's no right or wrong visualization, or the best visualization. There's the one that works best for you. Someone can visualize, someone really connects by visualizing the whole symbolism, like as we explained with Je Tsong Rinpoche, with the mudra of teaching the Dharma, and the vase of nectar of the Dharma, the yellow hat representing the qualities of perfect morality and correct view of reality. The hat is the morality, and the tip shows the correct view of reality, etc. And then it's very sharp, that cuts ignorance. And and there's nothing above that highest point. And we can go into all the details of the symbolism, or we can simply imagine our guru as we know him or knew him, whatever touches our heart. So there's no rule of how it should be done. It should be done in a way that really touches us. So we can, and then we can and visualize him as one of our masters, as Buddha Shakyamuni. And what's really important along this process is this visualization shouldn't be done with the attitude of, how can I say? I try to put into simple words just to summarize. The merit field visualization shouldn't be done in a kind of, let's say, devotional way. Devotional in the sense, oh, there you are, Guru Buddha, and I'm here to worship you and ask, of you like a kind of God. No, it's much more like getting close to a virtuous friend who reaches out his hand, for you to take. It's someone who it's like, I am about to embark on a journey, and I know you are the right guide. I have total faith in you that you are the right one to show me. It's not about visualizing Guru Buddha and then I need to make offerings to you to receive something from you. No, I don't know if I'm being clear. Because there's a danger that we do this practice in such a way, it's the wrong word, but the word devotional comes to me. I mean, it's a beautiful to be devoted, but it's not about, okay, you are there and I'm here and I'm asking you do for me. No, but if I feel gratitude, I have faith in you, you have faith in me, we walk together. That gives us the strength to walk together. I mean, this is that strong sense of faith and trust that's at the basis. And just to conclude for this morning, one of the most beautiful things here is that at the basis of the spiritual path, there is the human connection. You can't be on the path without this connection of heart to heart. This is not just about Buddhism. I think all traditions, even in the Christian tradition. I don't want to get into, I'm not going to explain other traditions, but at the basis there is this faith and trust. This is what we generate to support us for what comes. People might ask, why do we visualize? Because when we visualize, it's as if we're living that. So when we imagine, we visualize for our body, for our mind, it's as if we are actually there. So it allows for that experience to happen. When you imagine Guru Buddha, imagine you are in the presence of Guru Buddha. Wow, how beautiful. Look at something moves within me. It's not just, okay, I visualize him. Okay, I've done this part of the ritual. No. It's about generating these feelings within, allowing yourself to be in the presence of. What I want to share with you is the why of the certain passages and the the different possibilities, because the actual how, we have had wonderful, wonderful masters who've written these things down. After lunch, I want to say that Geshe Champa Techuk gave me, sorry, of the beautiful Lam Rim teachings that I've received. This comes from Pabonka Rinpoche. This is called the heart spoon, the raw practice of the experience of the path. So when he meditated on the Lam Rim, then he would go meditate in a small mountain hut, like, okay, on one point, like relying correctly on spiritual guide, and then he would go to his master, and then he his own insight he would share with share, and then he would write them down, and then years later, the disciples saw them. They, what are all these notes? And they said, oh, nothing, nothing. But instead, he said, no, can I take them and put them together? So, unfortunately, some of these pages were all like really eaten up by bugs and things. But so these are a description of notes of Pabonka Rinpoche. These like his insights that he had during his meditation on the Lam Rim. There's some amazing parts, and we're going to look at it after lunch. And I'm telling you now, maybe if you'd like to get it, it's we don't say buy for we. So when we talk about buying Dharma material or buying something of the Dharma, there's a Tibetan term that it says like acquire, but you acquire it and it doesn't bring any profit. We don't have this word in our language, but if you like to acquire, this book I have to say, it's one of the teachings that has touched me the greatest. It's called the Heart Spoon. And then after lunch, we'll try to conclude. No, we're not going to be able to conclude today, and tomorrow we'll conclude the parts of the six dharmas of preparation.
Losan tempe drume sasumgi drove munsel takto ne gyurche kewa kunto yanda lama dang dralme cheke pela longche chin sada lamge yente rabzone dorje change kopa nyurtobsho nimo dele tsindele nime koyan delekshin ninsen takto delekpe kuncho sumke chingi lob, kuncho sumke ngodrubtsol, kuncho sumke trashisho.
At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us obtain all the realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Have a good lunch, everyone, and we come back at 3:30.
Facciamo velocemente per tutti se